In 17, there isn't enough people stood to do a name vote. Thank you very much. Right. So we're going to voting in favour of the amendment. Could you please show who's in favour, please?
Please could I have my vote recorded in the minutes, Chair?
Can you? Well, we need to do a named for everyone who's in favour. Can you do a list? Oh, you maybe haven't got two lists.
We're just going to make a note of it.
No. So it's everyone on that side except. Thank you very much. Could we have a show of hands of all those against? More, so that is carried. Could I ask any abstention? Yes, Councillor Allerton. So the amendment has failed. We now need to deal with the original report and motion. Any further speakers before we go to the vote of the original proposal, please? And Councillor Andrew Goss.
Main. Yes, he has. Councillors, this is the most important decision that this council will ever have to make. There are a number of issues which we surely must question. The speakers have pointed out that the many unknown risks attached to this contract, and 10,000 people have objected to this contract. I agree that we should divert waste from landfill site to recycling centres. However, there are many reasons why this proposal for a waste incinerator stroke recycling plant should be rejected. There are huge unknown financial risks attached to this project. This council will surely have a huge impact upon taxpayers. Financial risk upon taxpayers. This is a 25-year contract which is totally inflexible and does not account for new and more environmentally friendly methods of waste disposal. Recycling figures throughout the district will inevitably increase over the next 25 years. Therefore, due to incapacity, there will be a need to import waste from throughout Yorkshire and many other areas. This action would most certainly impact upon our already congested roads and increase our carbon footprint. In conclusion, other more environmentally friendly and cheaper options have not been explored, despite Councillor Metcalfe's remarks. So what is in prospect is that we have a contract which binds this council for the next 25 years. 25 years. This would most certainly have a huge financial impact upon every taxpayer in North Yorkshire.
Good. Gareth Dudd.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's fair to say what this is not about today, and I know I'm repeating the points that Chris and one or two others have made. It's not about planning. That's been dealt with. And many of the issues that Councillor Goss has just raised were planning issues. That is fixed and settled. It's not actually about whether we should incinerate or not have the front end, or we should just have what we call the front end, as Councillor Cooper has publicly declared he would be happy with, and not incinerate. That debate was had in 2010. What this is about, it's about the financial offer that has been made. It's about whether we're prepared to make a long-term investment to deal with the problem of waste that will not go away. It's about us making a judgment about tomorrow's tomorrow. It's about a project that offers, frankly, some short-term pain for long-term gain. If we followed what the objectors have purported to seek today, and in fact Councillor Cooper has sought today, we would end up with short-term gain, but left with long-term pain. I will be seeking support for a recorded vote, because I think the public will be interested in each member's decision on this, and in fact how each and every one of us do vote. I would urge members to support the substantive motion and not, in my view, perform a cowardly retreat. And I would ask them to support it for the sake of £169 million worth of savings, rising to a potential £374 million worth of savings should we operate that plant for a further 5 years. I would ask them to support it for £839,500 worth of cultural and heritage improvements, for £3.4 million worth per annum of savings contributions. I would ask them to support it for £220 million being put into the local economy. I would ask them to support it for the equivalent of 12,000 cars and the CO2 emissions being removed from the roads. I would ask them to support it for the potential heat and most certainly power that it will provide. And finally, just as importantly, I would ask them to support it for the 70 permanent jobs and 400 temporary jobs.
Thank you very much. Councillor Eric Broadbent.
Thank you, Chairman. Knowing the very important decision that we all have to take today, I tended to look back sort of 5-10 years ago when this issue was first raised of what North Yorkshire does with its waste. In that 10 years ago, it wasn't as important as it is today, and we're all aware of the financial implications that if we don't get this right today, things are going to escalate. So I listened very carefully to all the public speakers here this afternoon, and I thought, gosh, there must be some positive things they're going to say, but I couldn't really listen. It all seemed very negative, so I was sort of thinking that they aren't issuing any or giving any alternatives or positives other than sort of, let's dump our waste somewhere else, in the UK, not in North Yorkshire. I think it's up to us really as our responsibilities to go ahead with this scheme, because if it was shelved, which I certainly hope it's not, and as some of the speakers suggested, this could have gone for several years, the problem that we have. As I mentioned earlier, I was on a scrutiny committee. I chaired a scrutiny committee in my committee. We looked throughout all North Yorkshire at the possibilities of dealing with our waste. There was one or two places which we drove past 2 or 3 times. You couldn't tell that it was an incinerator, a waste incinerator, and it was providing electricity to our national grid. It was using modern technology, and this was a long time ago. So I'm confident that modern technology, we mentioned the timescale, 25 years, it will be improved. That's how our life goes on. And I think that we'll take the right step here today if we vote for this plant to be for the go-ahead of it. So I think we need to keep North Yorkshire green. We need to keep our beautiful county looking well. We're going to hopefully get rid of more and more landfill sites. Everything to me is a win-win situation, and I will certainly support the recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank Thank you, Councillor Broadbent. Councillor Simister, next, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I will not be supporting the motion, as you can probably tell. This stems from a European landfill directive. That's what it's about. It's Europe telling us what we have to do with our waste. The question that you need to ask is, when has a major authority-led project ever come in on budget? Look at Harrogate. It built the conference centre back in the early 70s, projected at £7 million, came in at over £30 million. And this is an authority-led project being financed by taxpayers' money. Councillor Dadd spoke about short-term pain for long-term gain. The short-term pain is how many £1 million a year, every year for 7 years? For taxpayers, £32 million. How can you look in your taxpayers in the eye and say, it's worth it? 25 years, it's not going to be worth it. As I said, we've got mortgages 25 years, but we can look at those after 2 years. And Councillor Metcalfe spoke about waste being disposed of locally. Well, is Allerton local to Settle? Is it local to Scarborough? And the waste coming from the west of the region will be going down one road, the A59. And that goes through myself and Councillor Goss's division, past 2 schools. How many vehicle movements a day, a week, a month are we going to have because of this waste recycling plant? Today, Harrogate's news website, this very afternoon, has published a story to say that Harrogate's recycling is up 7%, the highest ever. So Harrogate District Council needs to be congratulated on recycling. And the more that is recycled, the less that is going to go to landfill, the less that will be burnt. We don't want this plant in North Yorkshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Elizabeth Shields, please.
Real advantages, if any, of this project for the residents of the villages and the local council areas living in the vicinity of the proposed incinerator.
Thank you. Councillor Carl Les.
Thank you, Chairman. A lot has been said about the environmental issues, but we are, of course, here today to talk about financial close and the affordability of managing our county's waste. A lot's been said about the pending issues provision, the PIP, and about how we as executive members squirreled away a stash of cash unnecessarily while starving services of resources. But what I would say to members is, what about the £7 million extra that went into helping elderly people live at home for longer? The £6 million extra that went into schools capital? The £4 million extra that went into replacing old concrete lampposts at the end of their safe working life? The £3 million that went into extra broadband connectivity, and the £2 million that went into a more efficient systems to reduce our back office numbers, and then the £5 million that went into redundancy payments so that service directorates didn't have to cover that. All that came from the PIP, and now the PIP is ready for its prime purpose, that of funding waste management. And as the finance portfolio lead, I can say that this project is affordable because of the PIP. Chairman, we need stability in managing our waste. This is a long-term issue. The best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago. The next best time to plant a tree is today. We need the stability to manage waste, control costs without the risk of market failures or market fluctuations. For me, the case to move to financial close has been made. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sam Cross.
Thank you, Chair. You're going to be amazed by this. I'm going to agree with Gareth Dadd. I think we should have a named vote on it. But I'm not going to agree with him regarding this plant. I want to thank you first to the speakers at the back. I think you spoke really well, and I'm glad you read the report. Very interesting reading, and you brought some good points out from the report. I do feel, though, you know, you're doing a better job than the officers, because they actually wrote the report, and I think you should be councillors. In fact, better still, I think you should be MPs, because both the MPs came up with the same points as you after reading the report. So, you know, let's look to them. Future MPs at the back. Let's have a look at the financial impact. The financial impact, does it matter? It's 728 million, 740 million, 1.4 billion. It's lottery money. It's a monopoly. Yes, it's a monopoly, but the good news is we have a get-out-of-jail card. We can use that get-out-of-jail card and spend £5 million and get rid of Amy Hesper and get rid of this silly idea of having this waste incinerator in this area. It's a 25-year contract. You know, most of you won't be here in 25 years. And we might not be here in 2.5 years where it's going. It's not future-proof. In 3 years' time, before the incinerator is built, it will be out of date. This is financial suicide, leading to bankruptcy of services. The question Sir Graham Hall asked, are there any better investments of uses of the 1.4 billion? Schools, infrastructure, services to the elderly, services to the young. Yes, there is better ways money can be spent. Let's take a step back. It's far too risky. It's a fudge business. And remember, it's the only person that will make out of this will be the Spanish company, Amy Hesper, that are building this site. They're the ones that are due to benefit, not the taxpayers of North Yorkshire. Next time you talk to your residents, when we've cut just 1.2 million, what could we do with that from the bus services? What can we do with that to service the residents? It's not fair on the residents. Yes, and furthermore, I asked for a referendum at the last council meeting. Give the people of North Yorkshire a vote, and they can decide whether we waste our money or whether we invest it sensibly in
finish
services.
Off now, please.
Thank you.
Can you switch 3 of your mics off as well, please? I've got Councillor Bateman next.
It's on there. Is it on now? Yeah. 4 years ago, Mr. Chairman, I voted for this. I don't hesitate to vote for it again. Although I was blackmailed by somebody that if I did vote for it, something else might happen, but I'm afraid I don't take blackmail. Last year as chairman, sitting in that chair, I went around the county. I can honestly say, during that year, I had nobody, and I mean nobody, raise this issue with me. People did say to me, get on with it. I've also consulted my own division, which is Ripon North, where I've asked members there, and I've only probably had 2, but I've had a vast number of people saying, yes, we want to get on with it. And even this week, I had former County Councillor Webber, saying to me, let's get on with it, we need it. And also another Lib Dem, John Stockdale, who was my colleague in Ripon, saying, let's get on with it. So, you know, even the parish councils in my area, which border the parish councils that are mentioned as far as the group are concerned, have not said they don't support it. So I've not had virtually anybody saying they're not in favour. All I've had is people saying yes. Last night we had a business meeting in Ripon, and I went round everybody and said, what do you think about it? And I didn't have one person who said we should not get on with it. I do honestly think that when we started off with Keith Barnes, who was a highly respected auditor, the Audit Commission, who was chairing this working group at that time, coming forward with all the plus points, etc. for it. He went into it very carefully with the working group, and I did congratulate him then. I do congratulate our executive and our officers for all the information they've given us. Now, unfortunately, I had a whole list of things, the best benefits of this, but Gareth pinched them all, so I had to cross them all out. But there are so many plus points for having this particular project going ahead. And I think we've got to look in 25 years' time at many of our grandchildren and our grandchildren's children and what it's going to deliver for North Yorkshire. And I'm happy to support it, Mr. Chairman, despite people saying to me I shouldn't. Councillor Parsons. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I still go back to Councillor Metcalfe's response to Sir Graham Hall. He said, we've looked at all the alternatives put to us. He did not say, we have looked at all the alternatives. So there are omissions in what we are considering. Councillor Dadd mentioned the 70 permanent jobs. Well, that's £10 million a job. I can think of many, many businesses that would be happy to take considerably less than that, and we would create many, many more jobs in North Yorkshire than those 70 jobs. Councillor Metcalfe also mentioned that it was only right that we disposed of our own waste. I presume that's in the light of Mr. Cameron's suggestion about devolution for England, and perhaps the fact that we may have border charges to pay when crossing into County Durham and some of the other neighbouring authorities. But he's also raising the possibility of a waste war, because currently the district councils receive the recycling credits. North Yorkshire and Amy Sesper would of course get recycling credits for the additional recycling that they create at Allerton Park. But just imagine there's not enough waste going in and that Mystic Meg got it all wrong. Then the North Yorkshire County Council would be in direct competition with the district councils, trying to pull in the waste so that they can actually keep the thing running and make it efficient and make it pay for itself. So potentially, we're going to find ourselves in direct conflict with all of the districts and all of the boroughs in North Yorkshire, and I don't want to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Briefly, Chair, I'm sure that will be a relief to members. It's clear that this is more than likely going to go through in a few minutes, so I wanted to just reiterate some points. There's been soft modelling of the alternatives. We're talking about spending a lot of money. We need good, hard figures in front of us, not soft modelling or a desktop exercise. I believe some of the comments made about some of the contributions, including myself, have been actually quite personal and have had insinuations in them that are incorrect. I think that's when you start to lose the argument, even if you win the vote. And we shouldn't be debating with one another in that way, and I'm sorry that that has happened. A comment was made that it is cowardly not to move forward. It is cowardly to oppose moving to financial close. I've come here today, and I've opposed the results of a working party chaired by a Liberal Democrat 4 years ago. I've opposed a Conservative executive member. That is not cowardly to walk into a council chamber and do that. That's actually having some guts. And if anyone doubts that I'm my own man, I think that proves that I am. And I will be opposing quite strongly, even after the vote, this. Not because I'm against incineration per se, although it's not my favourite thing, but because financially it is risky. It is not going to bankrupt this council. That's alarmist talk. It's marginal as it is. It could easily tip, and I think probably will tip, into being a deficit against the proxy model of landfill, and we have time to look at other alternatives. The only reason there's a rush for it today is because we have the option to do it today. We also have the option not to. The better option is to defer. That wasn't a cowardly option. It wasn't one that members agreed with. I have to accept that, and I do. In the absence of deferral, I'll be opposing.
Thank you. Councillor John Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I'm most disappointed. People have been accusing others of being rude and offensive and whatever, and so far I haven't been mentioned. I really do feel that I must be losing my grip somewhere in this council chamber. What concerns me here, and I have a feeling I can usually read council meetings, and I've got a sort of hint that this microphone system still isn't right, that the vote may go one particular way. But I think the Conservative executive will sleep well because they believe in it, and that's good. I think what isn't quite so comfortable with me is that I'm going to need to be on here for a further 15, 20 years before I can then say, I told you so. Because, yeah, I know it's frightening for me as well. It's frightening for us all. Yes, right. In the short term, we're saying all sorts of things that really may be accurate and may not. But in the longer term, they are bordering on the unbelievable because you believe in something and therefore it is. Well, I'm not prepared to gamble with taxpayers' money. Brackett, I know what's going to happen in 30 years' time. No, you don't. We might all think what we know what's going to happen in 30 years' time, but not even the executive. Somebody said earlier on they like the executive. I haven't quite got to that stage. To say they know what's going to happen in 30 years' time is unbelievable. The landfill tax wasn't my fault. It was the EU. Well, that's fine. But the EU could come along with an incineration tax tomorrow. They might call it an energy from waste tax, of course, to make it less painful. And we're committed to this route. 70 jobs. Yeah, good. But how many jobs would be in the alternative of doing a large level of recycling and doing anaerobic digesting within the districts? No calculation. And as for you having been rigorous, just tot up the number of changes that have been made to the report that's come to this full council as a result of your rigorous questioning in the executive. Because it looks to me, word for word, there isn't anything that's been altered. Now, is that because you believed it when you got to the executive, just like you believe it now? I think it is. And you really have got to look at, yes, plant a tree. That's smart. I'm impressed with the analogy. But plant it in the wrong place doesn't work. We've all seen people who plant pines that grow to 70, 80, 90 foot in the front garden. This is that size of wrong. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Robert Windress, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak today on this, but I will say now that I will be opposing the go-ahead with this. I base it purely on the fact that I don't think the figures stack up. It is going to cost an awful lot of money to the council taxpayers of this area for many, many years to come before there is any perceived gain from it. And as people have said all afternoon, that it is figures that are projected, that figures that could happen, and that is why I will be opposing it. Before I do, I will say that I think that Allerton Park is an ideal site for something of this nature. I also would like to thank Chris Metcalfe from the executive and the officers who have actually sat down and tried to convince me that these figures are correct. But I don't think they are, so I regretfully will be opposing.
Thank you. Councillor John Blackie.
I too wanted to say something about the tenor of the debate. It's a hugely serious issue, hugely serious for those people in the gallery who've come along, for the large number of people who came last time, no doubt the large number of people who are waiting on the outcome of this debate. And I don't think a debate as serious as this should have been marred, in my view, tarnished by some of the political assassinations that have gone on. I really think that's most unfortunate. People are entitled to their own opinions on something as big as this. It goes across groups, it goes across political persuasions. If you have an opinion, it happens to be again what the rest of your group say, you are entitled to say it. And I do think that any attack on that opportunity, rubbishing it in some way or the other, was wrong. I'm going to say that I don't buy into this. Oh, you know, we've got to do the British thing. We've got to look after our own waste ourselves. We've got to do our bit, take our own medicine. I don't buy into that. I've got to tell you that. The economies of scale, as far as I can see on these incinerators, and I'm no expert, means that you do have to aggregate waste up to make them actually work at the viable level. So crossing local authority boundaries makes a great deal of common sense if there is a solution available. If I remember rightly from the research we did, a lot of waste out of Scotland ends up at Teesside. In fact, they'd advertised for it and they brought it down. So quite clearly, Scotland had come to that conclusion, even though North Yorkshire County Council haven't. Again, I want to reiterate, because I do think we do have a very, very good team of officers in the BES department working on this with their colleague over at the district council. What worries me, though, is that reading through this report and remembering the last report in 2010, there's far more tentativeness, uncertainty, doubt entered into the paragraphs and the sentences than there were before. You know, I'm not going to give examples, but you just get that feeling when you read through it. Now, if they are the experts, and I'm quite happy to say that they are, and they're inserting those areas of doubt, uncertainty, then quite clearly the risks have increased since 2010. It will go through today. It's quite obvious. I don't want to be a told you so. I will be voting against it. I'll make that clear. I did last time, so what's new? But in voting against it, I actually hope that it will be a huge success. Because if it isn't, then every single taxpayer in North Yorkshire, including the treasured ones up in the upper dales, will have to pay for it out of their pocket for the next 25 years. And I won't be around at that time representing them. Take care.
Thank you very much. Councillor Liz Caslin.
Right. Firstly, as the member last time from the Conservative who actually abstained, it's one of the most courageous decisions I ever made. So I do congratulate Richard on having the guts to come forward with an amendment from the Conservative side, because it's not easy when you're in the party in power. The hegemony of the party at times can get a bit stressful and overbearing. So I congratulate you, Richard, for that, and I'm sorry that things have been called cowardly or whatever, because we all are very well intentioned and have the best intentions here. So anyway, enough of the moralistic stuff. I was under the conception that do nothing costs. We've got the 5 million, plus then the new consultants' fees, plus the ongoing landfill charges. So doing nothing is still going to cost, and surely we might come up with a solution that is going to cost more than this solution. So therefore, if we come up with another solution that is the same or similar to this solution, will those people who've been asking us to relook at this solution support that solution? That's what I want to know, because they've been asking us to look at it, haven't they? The technology could change, but this is very flexible technology that we've got here. It seems to me to be the best way forward given the current technology that we have. Yes, 25 years is a long way away. Hopefully a lot of you will not be here in 25 years' time, and hopefully I will. And the same with financial risks. I mean, you know, I think the officers and the executive, especially Councillor Metcalfe, have done an excellent job in going through the figures. I would trust what they say. I've read through it myself. My new member next to me has said he's already read the report. To say that you haven't and you don't understand, that's your problem. The officers are always more than happy to answer questions, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know whether it's just me or what. But they are. So, you know, the financial risks are there. You need to take a mature decision about this and about the decision for the next 25 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Wheel.
Thank you, Chairman. I will be very brief. I want to make 6 very quick points about what has come up in the debate for the whole of this afternoon. The first one is I'm absolutely staggered that anyone, let alone the CPRE, would recommend continuing to throw it all in holes in the ground. That is really something that we've been working against for year after year after year. And I think the first landfill tax that came in that was designed to stop doing that was, I think, 1996, so it's as long ago as that. Secondly, recycling rates, because people saying there won't be enough rubbish, recycling rates are going up. Recycling rates last year, between 12-13 and 13-14, went down in Craven, Richmondshire, Scarborough, Selby, and in the city of York. They went up in the other places, but that's where they went down. And transport, I've been regretting not having a go at John Blackie on this one for the last 4 years, John.
If you do the figures, just take half of it away as recycling and then take the figures that's left for Richmond and what David said as well from a Craven perspective, coming down the A59, put it in 20-ton wagons and bring it down. How many a day? Oh, queuing up on the A1 to get off at the junction, John. What is it, 45,000 a day on the A1 of vehicles in all. 3 a day would come out of Richmond and 3 a day will come out of Craven. And I've been generous because it works out at 12.6 a week. Finally, this isn't an ideal solution. I think we've all said that from day one. The ideal solution would cost at least twice as much, because the ideal solution is small incinerators, certainly in Harrogate, certainly in York, certainly in Scarborough, certainly in Catterick Garrison, the bigger communities, supplying not only electricity but heat. No front-end stuff, just burning it to produce electricity and to produce heat. The cost of that is enormous. And my God, wouldn't it be popular? And that's why that was not considered as the ideal solution. We all recognise there's a risk in this. Anybody would be completely foolish to say it's risk-free. It is not risk-free. We all recognise that. I believe very strongly that the alternatives pose a much greater risk. And I think there is evidence of this. I believe in Cumbria at the moment, where the refuse-derived fuel it's not saleable, but cannot be got rid of, where certain Baltic states have stopped taking the residual waste, and therefore the risks are actually greater.
I hesitate to say, Leader, you're out of time.
That's absolutely fine. I only had one other point, and it's only about 2020.
Thank you very much. Got to be careful with the leader. Councillor Metcalfe, would you like to sum up, or do you want to go straight to a vote?
Chairman, I think you've heard enough from me today. My views, well, there we are. My views are very clear, Chairman. Let's put it to the vote.
Could I ask... There's more than 20, so it will be a recorded vote.
Thank you, Chairman.
Members, please. Your name will be read out, and then if you could answer accordingly.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll read out in alphabetical order all councillors' names. Please can each councillor state clearly whether they are for, against, or abstaining from the original motion. So Councillor Val Arnold. Councillor Margaret Atkinson. Councillor Andrew Backhouse. Councillor Robert Baker. Councillor Arthur Barker. Councillor Bernard Bateman. Councillor David Billing. Councillor John Blackburn. Councillor John Blackie. Councillor David Blades. Councillor Eric Broadbent. Councillor Lindsay Burr. Councillor Liz Castling. Councillor David Chance. Councillor John Clark. Councillor Richard Cooper. Councillor Sam Cross. Councillor Gareth Dadd. Councillor Margaret Ann de Courcy Bailey. Councillor John Ennis. Councillor John Fort. Councillor Andrew Goss. Councillor Helen Grant. Councillor Tony Hall. Councillor Michael Harrison. Councillor Michael Heseltine. Councillor Robert Heseltine. Councillor Peter Horton. Councillor Bill Holt. Councillor David Allerton. Councillor Anne Jones. Councillor Mike Jordan. Councillor Carl Les. Councillor Cliff Lunn. Councillor Don Mackenzie. Councillor Penny Marsden. Councillor Chris Metcalfe. Councillor Heather Morehouse. Councillor Patrick Mulligan. Councillor Stuart Parsons. Councillor Caroline Patmore. Councillor Chris Pearson. Councillor Joe Plant. Councillor Tony Randerson. Councillor Janet Sanderson. Councillor John Savage. Councillor Elizabeth Shields. Councillor David Simister. Councillor Andy Soloway. Councillor Peter Sowray. Sorry, Chairman. Councillor Tim Swales. Councillor Helen Swires. Councillor Cliff Trotter. Councillor John Wheel. Councillor Richard Welch. Councillor James Windass. Oh, sorry. Apologies. Councillor Robert Windass. Okay. Councillor Claire Wood. And can any councillors indicate if they haven't voted? Full house.
Thank you, members. The motion has passed. Do you want to do the scoring or not? We're okay. Thank you very much for your attendance today. It's been a long one. Do you want to score? Thank you for your attendance this afternoon. It's been a long debate. And it was bound to get a little bit touchy at times, but thank you for getting through it. My scoring on it was 38 for, 17 against, and 2 abstentions. So, thank you very much. Safe journey home.